Right, quick introductions. My name is Pierre Mitchell. I run research at Spend Matters. We are, kind of the easiest way to say it is we're kind of like the public sector version almost of Spend Forum, Public Spend Forum, where we help organizations really improve their procurement capabilities, namely through technology, which is going to be the reason why we're speaking to you here as the keynote. And Jason Busch is the founder of Spend Matters, and but we're not going to talk too much about us. We're going to talk about you. Okay, so first grounding conversational item is, Raj, just a little bit. I don't know if you wanted to say a few words about procurement technology within the public sector context. And I know you're going to get into this later during the day, but I thought it might be good to just say a few words on it.
Sure. I'm being put on the spot. I didn't know they stole one of my slides. So just quickly, I don't want to take up really their time. All this is saying is that procurement technology, governments all over the world recognize it's important, and also recognize that there is a lot of proven case studies we'll hear today that it can actually be, it's not about technology at the end of the day. It's really about those big goals that we have, whether it's procurement or really more broadly about meeting our mission goals. And so things like really rapidly improving visibility and transparency, which we'll hear about. Even things like assisting in market research, helping us manage the relationships better, drive more collaboration, all the things that all of us know very much so. It's a big need, and we're excited that people are recognizing it.
Great, thank you. Okay, by the way, there's a bullet on here on NASPO, which was interesting. At a NASPO session, that was like 18 months ago or whatever, there was a roll call and saying, hey, what is everybody's strategic priorities coming in? So went round robin through all the states, and nearly every state, their strategic initiative was getting new technology to support the procurement function. You might not think that's the most strategic thing, but if your day-to-day life is so ground down in manual, cumbersome processes, you can't get to the strategic, and you only have so much budget and so much time in the day to add value that it really becomes a strategic thing. So we're going to talk a little bit about, Jason and I are going to talk a little bit about what's kind of happening in procurement in general, but certainly with a bit more of a lens towards the private sector, and kind of look forward while also kind of understanding where we've been. So right now, procurement organizations are focused on demonstrating value, and that means sometimes they use the term ROI and procurement ROI, but ultimately what they're trying to do is get maximum returns on their external spending to make sure their stakeholders are getting what they need to support the mission of the enterprise and the mission of the business. And for procurement, what that means is helping those who own the budgets and who own the spend to be able to do that, and giving them not just doing deals and paying bills, but actually helping them to really bring best practices and technologies to enable them to better leverage that spend and that supply market innovation to help their stakeholders. So ROI, with R, it doesn't just mean savings. And in the private sector, and there are a whole set of benchmarks that you can look around these sets of metrics, and we could spend just literally an entire day going through this entire area. But you can't save your way to zero. And the whole notion of procurement, what's happening is we're looking at value beyond driving savings and beyond just driving basic efficiency improvements. We're trying to safely tap market innovation from the supply markets. Look at P&G, you can look it up. It's a program called Connect and Develop from over a decade ago. CEO Lafley said, R&D, I need innovation. It's not coming internally. We need to get it from the markets. Let's figure out how to tap that market innovation, bring it in. And it was a huge boon to P&G. And in fact, you kind of argue that they've gotten away from that, and all these new eco brands sprouting up and actually really innovating, they've kind of lost their way a little bit. But it's a great example of someone that's kind of gone external. So for procurement to be this, kind of call it this semi-permeable boundary out to the supply markets, to be able to bring that intelligence in, you have to really be a partner of choice. And what that means is really working with the business and working with the agencies and working with the stakeholders to understand what are they trying to focus on, what are their outcomes, and how do we use supply market innovation to ultimately pass that through and help them do that, and do it in a way that we commercially set that up for success. So we're not just in there and mandating ourselves into a sourcing process. We are there to really enable the process and to transform the process. The way to do that is to actually practice what we preach and to adopt practices and tools to do that. We're going to be agents of change and leaders. And by the way, I put some Myers-Briggs stuff up there. We actually did a study which was on the procurement personality profile, and there was like 2 dominant profiles. Leaders and the ENTP, which was more around visionary. So it was really, and these are actually, chief procurement officers have the same kind of personality type as chief information officers. And technology, CIO, and procurement, those worlds are coming together, right? So as we externalize and markets are going digital, we're bringing those together to the benefit of our stakeholders. And as we do that, how do we do that? We swim upstream. We go to the fire. We understand what our stakeholders are doing to understand their outcomes. And the single most impactful best practice that I found studying this through benchmarking for years and years through the data is, it's one practice, and that is early involvement in the planning and budgeting process with your stakeholders when they are deciding how to spend their limited pool of money on what they're trying to do and what to support their mission. If you're involved with them way up front, then you understand the money they have to spend and what the outcomes are that are able to. And at that point, you can figure out in-source, outsource, how do we engage, what are our existing suppliers that can help. All the options are available to you. Then you have to then be able to execute, right? And be able to bring your practices, your partners, to be able to do that in lots of different ways. And that's really what the new chief procurement officer and the new heads of procurement are becoming they're really becoming new CEOs, where E is externalization. We're bringing this market intelligence and this market innovation to bear. And so with all this focus on digital, all that kind of stuff, digital is becoming just part of what we do, right? And the markets are going digital. Your challenge is how to understand how that's happening and bring that digital enabled capability to bear for your stakeholders. So that's the strategic context, right? And so as you do that, markets are getting disrupted. Every single market that's out there is getting disrupted. Talking about, let's say, Uber for business and what that's doing to travel spend and hospitality and logistics, in future, but just on travel, right? Being able to track our corporate travelers all over the world and have great tools to be able to help them safely navigate their travel experiences. That's one example. Amazon, we have Amazon in the room. So are they a retailer? Are they a marketplace? Are they a 3PL? Are they a technology platform? Are they going to be your new AI overlords? Yes, maybe all of that. Just kidding. Yeah. But obviously, it's they are the preeminent disruptive company, and you can use someone like that to drive a lot of improvement into your operation. Every industry is getting disrupted. Business process outsourcing, organizations where all their people are basically, getting automated into software-based, robots. Consulting organizations, which is like sweet revenge. I used to be on the consulting side, but they are actually having to take their knowledge and embody it and put it into analytic solutions and serving up, their expertise in technology-based solutions. Enterprise software, everything is going to the cloud. Everything is becoming a web-based service. Even contracts, over 70%, 80% of the CLM, contract lifecycle management market, is going into the cloud. That is your most strategic information. That's going into the cloud. Why? Encryption at rest, security, class 5 data centers that are going to be able to manage that. Amazon and Google and IBM, they're going to be able to manage data more than maybe just your local company's data center or your local agency's data center, right? So it's tapping that expertise. Temp labor, moving to the gig economy and logistics. Every single market is getting disrupted, and this is a great opportunity to create value as you pilot maybe some new opportunities with them, but also to bring some leverage to your existing incumbent relationships and really drive some new value into that spend. So as you do that, one core skill, I'm just going to do it as a little bit of sideline, the ability to do cloud contracting. This is not just for an IT professional to know. Everybody should understand how cloud services, subscription-based services, are served up and how you consume them and how you manage the security around them, and also just the commercial areas. Do you own the data? If you're not buying the apps, you're renting them. What happens when that turns over? Do you even own the data itself? A lot of fine print, a lot of contracting strategies. You guys are going to get a copy of the slides, by the way, so you don't have to worry about writing stuff down. But I had a little Google this, which is buying everything as a service. There's a whole webinar that we did just on this whole topic. It's a huge topic. So as everything becomes a service served up on the cloud, that includes procurement. So procurement as a service. So as procurement goes beyond how am I going to just do my little step of the process, in terms of tendering bids and running acquisitions, to more of how do I help the stakeholders get what they need and make my procurement itself transparent to them, but make the process much less friction. If you look at what the Amazons and all the best companies do, they are attacking complexity, they are reducing friction, they are making it much simpler to focus on an outcome. And so, think to yourself and ask your stakeholders, do some customer surveys and things like that. How easy is it to do business with me as procurement and for you to get what you need? It's pretty eye-opening, some of the responses you'll get. And a lot of it ties back to technology. You could have done a lot of great work, it's just they didn't know that there was an agreement out there that could be used. So this is where digital can really help. And if you're gonna kind of go digital, look outside, not in, right? Supply market innovation from the outside. So I know this is a complex eye chart, but basically procurement organizations are solution assemblers. You are taking all of these external services and bringing them to bear to help you deliver that service, to those budget owners and ultimately to the constituencies that they serve. And as you do that, a lot of things being served up as a service: technology, infrastructure, platform, software, data, and business processes themselves. We're going to hone in on software as a service and technology applications for the budget owner called procurement. You don't have a lot of money. In fact, you may have no money, and there's options for that. We can talk freemium, etc. But this is where we're going to kind of get into the technology market and how you can make sense of it and try to help you help your organization. So Jason, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Great, thanks Pierre. So I'm going to go through a few slides here. I know we're trying to stay on time. Raj gave us 20 or 25 or 30 minutes. I kind of forget.
35, 40.
But asking the two of us to do that is a little bit difficult. So I do want to get into kind of the bones of today. I appreciate digital disruption. I agree with my colleagues on it. But if we look at the here and now of what matters in procurement tech, it's not AI and robotics today. It will be very soon, and we're using it in different cases. But it's basic things, but it's going to the cloud. And I think that is the key thing to remember. Whether it's CLM, contract lifecycle management, as Pierre mentioned, whether it's e-procurement solutions for transactional procurement, whether it's sourcing, whether it's supplier management, these are solutions which are moving to the cloud. So we, like others, do market sizing in terms of looking at the overall procurement technology market. And we estimate it's going to be $6.5 billion 2018, pretty impressive number. But what's driving it is cloud growth, 21 to 23% overall. But certain vendors are growing much faster, and certain areas are growing faster than that. So if you still think you need to have things behind the firewall because of security, because of protocols, because of rules, that will eventually change. There's not a business reason to do it today. There might be a policy reason to do it. But even in highly secure situations, as Pierre notes, we're going to need to move to the cloud overall.
Jason, so what does that mean in terms of practical implications relative to, say, how things were done before the move to the cloud and on most of the solutions being cloud-based? How does that change? And you might be talking to this later, so
yeah. I'm just going to skip ahead to this. Absolutely. Thank you, Raj. The cloud is not just about getting software as a service, right? That was what it was originally. The cloud is about working with others. It's about getting benchmarks. It's about getting KPIs. It's about standing up solutions very quickly. In certain cases, an order of magnitude faster than you could have deployed something before. You can go live with a simple sourcing solution, a simple supplier management solution in a day or two, right? If you were doing software before, it might have been a while. Now, don't think for a minute if somebody promises you're going to move e-procurement to the cloud in a few weeks or even a couple of months. It's more complicated than that, but still, you can get going a lot faster, and the cloud also brings with it a lot of other benefits in terms of peer benchmarks, again, learning what best practices are, being able to measure your results in the context of others. So we are going to talk quickly now about a handful of procurement technology areas. At Spend Matters and with Public Spend Forum, we cover kind of the classic in-the-box strategic procurement technologies. So sourcing, supplier management, analytics, contract management. We also cover procure to pay, so e-procurement and invoice to pay. And that's not everything, right? There are things on the periphery, but that captures, aside from services procurement, a big chunk of the market. We just released our latest, what we call solution map reports, which cover different providers in this sector. And unfortunately, to date, it's been somewhat private sector focused. But you can still learn from what's happening in the private sector, and actually a number of the same providers are also moving into public sector too. All of this is free, so you can find it on spendmatters.com/solution map. But what I want to call your attention to here is how one size doesn't fit all. We'll be working with Public Spend Forum to create what we call unique buying personas for public sector in the near future. But in the private sector, one size doesn't fit all. Some organizations have a nimble profile. They want to stand something up fast and easy. Others have a deep profile. They want the best technology, the best-in-class functionality. They're not focused on total cost of ownership or other areas. They just want the best. And there's others too. But what's really interesting is as you begin to rack and stack the providers, this is an example of procure to pay and e-procurement, providers look different depending on what persona you want. So the notion of having magic in a single chart is irrelevant today. We need to, what we call mass customize, best fit, different buying personas to different technologies. And that's how we're going about this. And we're super excited to do it in public sector as well. So again, this is just an example of procure to pay and e-procurement. You can go to Spend Matters and pick your own personas and play around. Again, it's free. We sell deeper data if you're interested, but it's totally free to just get the graphics. Here's an example of sourcing. Absolutely fascinating. So if you take a nimble persona for sourcing, there's a whole different provider set of vendors who to sell at that persona, right? Cheap, easy, fast. But if you open it up to deep, man, the whole universe expands dramatically, and one size clearly doesn't even fit all for deep. So this persona-led approach is really important.
And Jason, too, for some of those, you can actually get them for free. I mean, supplier-funded kind of,
Yep.
models, and you can even get some of the technology through BPO firms or managed service firms, and there's different ways that you can get these solutions, and they don't have to be big technology projects. So if IT is being a pain in the butt and you want to work around them, you just call it a business project. And no, I'm just kidding. Don't work around IT. Get them engaged. They're key partners. Same IT and procurement. They're brothers. They live the same lives. You know it. So all right. Sorry, Jason.
Thank you, Pierre. I feel like click and clack up here.
Don't present like my brother. Go ahead.
Exactly. I lack the Boston accent, but maybe someday.
We'll get you.
So super fast, talking about spend analysis, because I think this is important and a good lead into a comment Pierre said earlier around the symbiotic relationship of procurement with IT organizations. So again, if you look at a nimble persona in terms of what solutions might be a fit, it looks very different in terms of who's on the map and who isn't compared to what we call a CIO-friendly persona. So again, a CIO and procurement working together value other things. This is where security, this is where integration, this is where other requirements begin to come in. So again, I would urge you to not adopt a one-size-fits-all approach to looking at technology today. And I think about what organization you represent, whether it's a state and local organization or a giant federal agency. We have different personas. So we're going to wrap up in a minute here, but this ties to wrapping as well. One thing we're big fans of, being former procurement consultants ourselves, is reuse, right? So if you can reuse what you have and you can extend it, all the better. So it's important to look at what you have from a back-end financial system. It's important to look at what you have from a back-end inventory planning system and supply chain system, and even asset management. So work with your IT organization to understand those assets. Work to see what can be extended. We have a whole e-procurement type of persona which basically wraps capability on top of your ERP system. You might still want to use ERP in the background for doing certain things. You might just want a nice front end in front of it. So there are ways of leveraging what you have. You can also make analytics work for you. So besides just doing spend analysis, so Pierre likes to call spend analysis spent analysis because it happened in the past and it's your data. But imagine bringing outside data in. Because we have available benchmarks in public sector, we can not only see what we spent in the past, but we can see how we're performing relative to others if you do this right. So treat analytics as a means not just of internal forensic analysis, but being able to look at how you're stacking up and what you might be able to do in the context of others as well. So we're winding down. I promised I'd pass it back to Pierre for a couple of ugly slides coming up.
Well, gosh, setting me up for success there, Jason. Right, so that issue around analytics, I think it's a key point. There's an outside-in piece and an inside-out. So inside-out analytics is seeing what you spent, who spent it, why do we spend it, why are we spending so much, really giving people a lens into what actually happened. That's a huge eye-opener. You bring that spend data to the stakeholders, and you're going to get a lot of really interesting conversations going about why we did what we did. And that's a great way to help transform. Similarly, outside in analytics, where we can bring in benchmarking or take federal government like FPDRS or whatever, I don't know all the acronyms, but to be able to say, hey, let's take that spend data, bring it in, and then tie that external information into our internal systems so that we can actually have that outside in view, which is ultimately what procurement needs to be doing. So I'm going to have this as a lead behind. This is the area around AI. And AI, what's going on? Oh, absolutely nothing. Actually, no, it's a bill, sorry. There are a couple areas that are happening within AI that are, very real right now. Spend analytics. How do we analyze spend and use AI engines to auto-classify messy spend into some type of spend taxonomy? Very useful so that you don't have to do it. You let the engine do it and learn from the wisdom of the crowd on how people have coded that kind of information. So actually, I'm going to just kind of bang through all of these, and then I'm going to talk about the ones that are really important. So spend analytics are key. Invoice analytics and analyzing your inbound invoices and understanding how to best match those to the POs and the contracts that are out there, and how to really best manage that automatically, do auto matching so that you don't have to do that. You can focus your time on how to get better working capital, working with your vendors to get more value out of them. Contract analytics. How do we take, rather than just contracts as a big repository of documents, how do we get inside those contracts and understand the risk that's in there, or understand the compliance that is reflected in there or not? Is that counterparty, is that supplier, leveraging, adhering to the regulations that are out there? So the area around AI and contracts is really learning how to speak the language of contracts and regulations and jurisdictions, and government, certainly in federal government, like the FAR and all the other patchwork of regulations. If you can decode that to really ultimately help someone get what they're looking for and make sure it adheres with that, complexity, great. It's kind of like, like TurboTax, right? Kind of make it really engineered to amaze. Keep all that complexity underneath, but make it really easy for the end users. So AI, there's a ton of stuff going on out there. You just need to know where to look. I'm not going to get into it too much, but for the advanced folks out there, you can kind of take a look into this. Okay, let's go to the next one. So the key thing I want to leave, kind of really emphasize around technology is not just automating the cow path. It's like, let's, and a lot of times senior executives say, well, let's not invest anything in automation, because why don't we first fix the process and the policy, then we'll bring in the tool. Well, technology more and more is being used to actually deliver new sets of techniques and insights that create value that were not there before, and that's really where I want to kind of call out a few. One, category management. Category management is more than just an approved vendor list that you set up so you can reuse vendors. That's good strategic sourcing 101. It's good category sourcing, but category management is really on how do we tailor our processes based on the nature of the spend to get really maximum value out of that, all the way through the life cycle of working with our suppliers and with a particular program. That's a much bigger nut and where there's more value. Bid optimization or win-win sourcing, this is for big acquisitions, big market baskets, and the idea is open it up, go huge, and then let potential suppliers cherry pick. They can bid on whatever the hell they want. Let them put their best foot forward. Well, now I've got an apples to apples comparison problem. Bid optimization lets me analyze these bids and start making trade-offs of, hey, if I go with one supplier, I can actually, I'm going to actually leave $20 million on the table versus if I go for 2 or 3. Yeah, I got to manage an extra supplier. Is that worth it? Now we actually have some trade-offs.
Optimizer, mention it.
Right, and so and you're starting to see this getting rolled into just some of the basic e-sourcing tools. So I don't know, did you want to?
Yeah, so super fast. If you're interested in bid optimization, so not just RFX, not just auction models, we've got a persona called the optimizer, which is in the solution map. Again, you can read the definition, you can see which providers do it, but we're huge fans of it.
Right, and so that enables scenario planning and other things. So the tools can actually help enable new sets of techniques. Another trend, sourcing. We'll get moving beyond just episodic sourcing and just doing deals to how do we manage strategic supplier management. And in that, we do sourcing and contract and management and risk management and performance management, all of that within the context within how do we manage suppliers. And that's an easier way to work with stakeholders rather than I'm just mandating myself into the acquisition process. We talk about how do we get more value out of suppliers. Guided buying. This is a notion, you see it every day on the consumer side as guided selling. When you are on any website and you're getting guided around and they're asking information about your emails, who are you, what are you interested in, I got some I'm tracking you because I know from your smartphone and all this kind of stuff. They are guiding you, they are pathing you down to ultimately sell to you. On the flip side, in the corporate world or in the government space, when you want to help stakeholders go down a path that's right around buying and guiding them to use P cards, go out, punch out to Amazon, talk to the category manager. It's using that technology, but in the context of really helping the end user get what they need, but get in and out, not get upsold, get what they need, and according to policy, and still make it easier to use. That's guided buying, and that ultimately helps in your tail spend problem. So tail spend is basically, the 80% of the transaction, the suppliers that are going to represent only like 20% of the spend. In fact, it's even less. It's more than P cards. It's actually bringing the P cards and the marketplaces and e-procurement and all that together to kind of create a much more singular experience. And if you can do that, now you can start to bring in enablement for diverse suppliers, start to do the outreach. I think we're going to have Eva talking about what they did, which incorporates kind of bringing, helping folks sell to the government more easily. And the trend is going and not just putting in just apps to automate workflow of documents and getting, which is our empty applications, just general workflow tools, but bringing that intelligence and analytics into the application to actually make that that technology manage that process better. So a lot of areas to focus on, and you can start super simple. One example, digital signatures. Rather than chasing wet ink on contracts, what a stupid process. Go to digital signatures, get people to sign off on it digitally, crush your cycle time by 85% out on when you're actually doing that contract signing process. And one of those just simple little areas. Now, it's big in private sector. I'm sure there's a million reasons why it's more difficult in the government, but certainly it's an easy low-hanging fruit. All right, this is our last slide, and I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on it, but there are a lot of ways that you can get technology. You can get freemium, which means you can go and not have to pay anything to be able to use technology. But there's catches, right? It's not always free, it's included, right? There's a difference between free and included. There's new collaboration methods. You can use requests for solution. You can use reverse industry days. You can use innovation fairs. Raj can talk to you quite a bit about all these different ways that's happening just even in the public sector. So as you do that, there are a lot of implementation barriers, right? Let's be clear. You got to partner with IT. You got to partner with finance. You got to work with the end users and help them understand how you can really add value to their process and not just make it compliant, but actually make it better. And you can actually show them how you've done that, maybe with other stakeholders, right? And hey, don't you want to do what we've done with some of the other folks? So as you do that, then this is a great opportunity for you personally, and it's a great opportunity for you as a procurement organization to bring in these new technologies and business models, demonstrate some value, get some wins, and then just keep replicating that and slowly get more and more wins. And as you do that, they're going to be like, yeah, procurement, that's the group to actually call and not just be, hi, I'm here from procurement, I'm here to help. It's like, I'm going to reduce your budget. Yeah, no thanks. No, that the inflection point is changing and saying procurement is actually someone we want to use to bring them in. And it's actually happening. This transformation is happening. So Joe Sandor there from Michigan State was saying, we have 900 companies that are vying to hire 200 of our MBA students. 900 companies trying to get 200 students. Obviously, it's a testament to the program, but it's also showing what top-level talent is really, is able to really create out in the market. It's also a challenge because, from a hiring standpoint, a lot of the best talent might be going into the private sector. Rush, so oh yeah. So anyway, that basically means it's a great time to be in procurement. So with that, I don't know, did you want to do a question or two, or do you want to do that later?
How about this? We'll come back since Pierre and Jason will be here. I do suggest as we go through the last part of the session, we kept intentionally open for a lot of Q&A.
Yeah.
Because we knew there'd be a lot of questions as we go through.